Hey guys, all right, so this video is for the reading that we're going to do in our book. As you can see, this is my screen that you have right now in front of you. The grayed out video here is just the agenda that you should have hopefully watched. The agenda is just going to go over everything you need to do every day, okay? This is my screen, so it might look a little bit different on yours, but we're going to jump right into chapter 4, Fertile Crescent. This is actually a review from what we've already learned earlier today, or earlier in the school year. So chapter 4, Fertile Crescent, the first page is actually at the bottom right corner. All right, so you're gonna have to click on that, and then you can use the zoom keys down here to help make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to read from the book because I'm actually outside today because it's actually not too bad. So I'm going to read from the book and we will go through the checkpoints. And here we go. Chapter 4, Fertile Crescent. Have you ever stood at the top of a tall building in a large city? What did you see below you? You probably saw crowded streets and people rushing into stores and offices. Maybe you saw a busy highway filled with cars and trucks. All of these things are a part of modern civilization. What is civilization? The word comes from an old word that means someone who lives in a city. Yet, civilization means more than just living in cities. In this chapter, you will learn how one of the world's first civilizations began. Those little triangles that you'll see are your checkpoints. So I suggest after I go over the checkpoint, you pausing the video, writing it down on a piece of paper, and then you can convert those answers to the chapter checkpoints that I went over in the agenda video. Okay. So the first checkpoint, look at the picture below. In what ways are modern cities different from the picture of one of the first cities? So how is that picture different than the cities that we have now today? Pause. Next, Mesopotamia. One of the first civilizations was Mesopotamia. Today, this region is part of a country called Iraq. Two rivers ran through Mesopotamia, the Tigris and the Euphrates. So, because these pages are a little bit backwards, I'm going to click out of here, click on page 25, and zoom in a little bit for you guys. Page 25. The land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers was good for farming. The rivers provided water for crops. Land that is good for farming is called fertile. For this reason, the land of Mesopotamia is called the Fertile Crescent, which we've talked about this year already. Checkpoint 2. Look at the map on this page. Write the names of the 4 cities that were near the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in Mesopotamia. So the first thing you need to do is you need to locate those 2 rivers, and then you need to write down the 4 different cities that run along those rivers. Okay? Pause. What makes a civilization? We study ancient civilization of Mesopotamia because it influenced later civilizations, including our own. But civilization did not happen overnight. Let's look at 5 steps that people took to develop civilization over 5,000 years ago. Number 1, people learned how to grow crops. They also discovered how to domesticate or tame and use animals. This was an important step. Before people knew how to farm, they had to hunt animals and find wild plants for food. These were important developments. 2, people began building permanent homes. Before civilization, humans moved from place to place, and they lived in caves or tents. Next page. Some people moved from place to place because they had to follow animals they hunted for food. But with crops and domesticated animals, people could live in one place and build houses. Once this happened, towns and then cities began to grow. Number 3, people began to develop technology. You remember that technology is the use of tools to help people in their work. Early people learned to make weapons from metal instead of stone. They also invented such important tools as the wheel. Number 4, people made intellectual achievements. Intellectual means having to do with the mind. These achievements included the invention of the writing and the calendar. People could now write stories and keep records of their crops. Calendars help people keep track of time. Finally, people began to create laws. This is our 5th one. And rules to help them live together. In in a city, laws are needed to keep order among the different people who live there. Civilization in Sumer. Sumer is something you should remember. Sumer became the first large area of farming villages in Mesopotamia. Find Sumer on the map on page 25. The people of Sumer, called Sumerians, created the first civilization in Mesopotamia about 5,000 years ago. One of the most important steps made by this civilization was the invention of a written language. Writing was invented probably to meet people's needs for keeping records and lists. The Sumerians came up with a way to keep track of what they bought and sold. Little by little, a complete system of writing was invented in Sumer. It was called cuneiform, another word you should remember. The Sumerians first used writing to keep records of lists. What else can people do with writing? That's your question that you need to answer. The second part was create your own writing system. Show some characters below. So you can see, this is backwards for you, I'm sure. Hopefully you can see it. Okay, this is my name. I made up a couple different symbols and wrote it out. So that's what you're going to do for this checkpoint. Okay, this is where you pause. Write it down so that way you can do it later. Next is page 27. Switch. There we go. The civilization of Sumer reached its high point about 4,000 years ago. The Sumerians had learned how to irrigate their crops. This means they built ditches and canals to bring water from the rivers to dry land. They lived in large walled cities. At the center of each city was a temple called a ziggurat. Vocab word. A temple is a building where people pray to a god or gods. Here, the Sumerians prayed to their gods and goddesses for good crops. In time, ideas from Sumer began spreading. Traders came and went from the cities of Sumer. When they traveled, these travelers took with them the knowledge of Sumer's inventions. The Babylonians. About 3,000 years ago, new groups of people began moving into Mesopotamia. One of the largest and most powerful of these groups was the Babylonians. These people were named for Babylon, the city they built in Mesopotamia. Checkpoint. Look at the map on page 25. Which direction is Babylon from the city of Ur in Sumer? So look at where Babylon is. Look at where the city of Ur is. And is it north, south, east, or west? Okay, give me that direction. Pause. Under a king named Hammurabi, the Babylonians conquered or defeated the Sumerians. They ruled all of Mesopotamia, but the Babylonians learned a lot from the Sumerians. The Babylonians built large farms and ziggurats and wrote in cuneiform. Hammurabi's laws. You should know this name. This is on our Mesopotamia song that you guys all love. Okay. Hammurabi was not only a powerful warrior, he also developed a set of laws to keep rule his kingdom. Hammurabi's laws from all over Mesopotamia. He chose the ones he thought were fair. These laws had to do with the land, money, business, and family life. The idea behind Hammurabi's laws was that strong people should not hurt the weak people. And I think that's a really great way of thinking things, right? Strong people should not go after the weak people. Last page. The Hebrews. You'll actually learn a lot more about the Hebrews in 7th grade, but this is a great introduction, okay? The Hebrews were another group of people who originally lived in Mesopotamia. A great Hebrew named Abraham led the Hebrews from Sumer into a land of Canaan. This land now lies in Israel and Lebanon. The Hebrews lived in Canaan for many years. Then a drought, a long period of time without rain, began to kill their crops. The Hebrews then went to Egypt, a country you will read about in the next chapter that we're going to do tomorrow, later in the week. I think it is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're going to do that. The Hebrews were turned into slaves by the Egyptians. A slave is someone who is owned by another person. In time, a great Hebrew named Moses led the Hebrews back to Canaan. Checkpoint. What caused the Hebrews to leave Canaan? Write it down, pause the video, so you have it for later. The 10 Commandments, which you'll also learn about in 7th grade. In Mesopotamia and Egypt, most people believed in many gods. The Hebrews, however, believed in only one God. The belief in one God is called monotheism, which we've talked about this year as well. Today, we call the religion of the ancient Hebrews Judaism. People who follow Judaism are called Jews. According to the holy writing of Judaism, it was God who told Moses to leave the Hebrews out of Egypt and across the desert to Canaan. This journey was called the Exodus, which means departure. The Hebrews followed laws during the Exodus. The most important of these laws were the Ten Commandments. Several religions believe that God gave 10 commandments to Moses while the Hebrews were in the desert. The Ten Commandments became the most important of all Hebrew laws. They taught people to honor their parents and to love one another. They do not allow people to lie, steal, cheat, or kill. Last checkpoint. In what ways are the Ten Commandments similar to many laws that we have today? Pause it, write it down. We're going to show you where your checkpoint is. Okay, so we did our do now. We did our reading and checkpoints. Now we're going to do you're going to do your checkpoints here in that document that I showed you before, and then you are going to go to your assessments page or section. You're going to click on the checkup, and you're going to do this quiz here. Okay, so all of the questions are right there. You can go back and you can open up the reading in a different tab to help you. Okay, if you have any questions about the quiz, you can always email me. You can email me if you have any questions. Okay, take your time, finish it up, send it to me, and I will see you again tomorrow. Ciao.